Hey there, it's Jason from Codemanship with another video diary entry. If you're enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe and ring the bell for notification. So Codemanship's been going for 13 years now, crikey. I've worked with hundreds of teams and thousands of developers over those years in a very wide range of different organizations. And one of the benefits of having that sort of bird's eye view, if you like, if it gives you a perspective that enables you sometimes to see trends that other people can't see. And one of the trends that I've noticed developing over the last decade is the reluctance of employers to give wide responsibilities to junior developers, to let them try lots of different things. It's the sort of the equivalent, basically, of handing someone a blue paintbrush and saying, just paint all the number sixes. And I see more and more developers being boxed into those very narrow roles, very narrow activities. So much so that I know, for example, server-side developers, Java developers, who are working on web services, but they've never created a web service and they've never written code that consumes a web service. They've been kept away from that, in some cases for more than a year. And the effect this has is it really slows down the learning process. I was very lucky sort of in my early days as a software developer in the 90s. The technology was much simpler. So you could build a whole application yourself with, you know, a user interface and middle tier stuff and databases and that kind of stuff. It was much easier to do that. And also because very often I was working my own or leading very small teams, we had to wear a lot of hats in terms of requirements analysis and testing and architecture and infrastructure and all of that stuff. So you got to see a lot more of the process as well as a lot more of the tech stack and the architecture. And as a result, you learn faster, basically. Now, that's not to say that we didn't make lots of mistakes. And I can totally understand that's what employers are afraid of, that they take people, they're given a little bit of training, just enough Python or Java or JavaScript, just enough to be dangerous, and then let them loose on paying systems, whether they're core systems in their business or core products that they sell, stuff that has a big dollar value attached to it, that it would be a big deal if they were to break it. So I can understand that reluctance, but what it means is your developers, what's that joke they say, what about the difference between 20 years of experience and 1 year of experience 20 times? I see more and more career paths working out that way, that basically they're being boxed in. And they're not getting a chance to try other stuff. And that's because people are afraid that they're going to break it, basically. Now, there is a metaphor we can use here, and this is what this photo on the screen is all about. Play centres, or sometimes referred to as soft play centres. They're all over the UK. I'm sure they're all over the world. And these are places that you can take your kids and leave them there basically while you go and have a coffee in the cafe. They can run around and roar and scream and jump up and down and throw themselves into things and throw themselves out of things and climb ropes and do all that kind of stuff. But the environments are specifically designed to minimize the risk of serious harm, as well as, you know, adult supervision that's there for the same reason. So they are places where kids can be kids and they can run around and you know, have a great time and take risks, if you like, with their parents, in, you know, safe in the knowledge that it's very unlikely that they will cause serious harm to themselves or to anybody else. So they're great places for kids to be kids, basically, without the consequences of letting them out onto a building site, for example, and letting them be kids there. Still loads of things to climb up and down on, and et cetera, but the risks of harm are much, much higher, and to adults as well. So what would the equivalent of a soft play centre look like for junior software developers and apprentices? And I've been thinking about this quite a bit and talking with a couple of clients. And I've had this idea that, because the main objection has always been, we are paying these people money, even if you're a junior developer, even if you're not really particularly productive yet. The starting salary for a developer in the UK is somewhere around £30,000 a year, and then it rises quite quickly. So after a couple of years, you're having to pay them 40,000 or more, maybe 50,000 or more, depending on what kind of business they're working in. So these people are burning money, and you want to get a return on that investment. But it doesn't really work out that way, because the mistake I think a lot of companies make is they say, well, look, we've given them their 12 weeks training, we sent them on the boot camp, and now we need them to be working on production software. But as many of us have discovered to our cost, that's not necessarily such a good idea, because they can't work unsupervised, really. It's going to be a long time before they can. Certainly more than 12 weeks, typically of the order of 1 to 3 years before you can just leave them to get on with it. And in that time, they are wreaking havoc in your code unless they're constantly supervised, which means you're taking a much more expensive, much more experienced developer, pulling them off doing value stuff and having them basically supervising the junior developers. And a lot of employers don't like that proposition either. And I can understand why that too. But there's no getting around this. Software developers do have to learn. And really the only way to learn software development is to do software development. But could we create environments that are safe for junior developers to roar around and jump in and out of things and climb up and down things, metaphorically speaking, and break things and fail, which I certainly did many times at the start of my career, and it still happens, but not as often. Hopefully, so they can take those risks, safe in the knowledge that if it all goes wrong, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. What kind of projects or products would that look like? And I've had a thought about this. I think, bear with me on this, I think you should take your most junior developers, the ones who've only just learned how to code probably, take your most junior developers, form them into squads or teams, and then give them long shots to work on, real long shots, like long shots that potentially could have great value, the equivalent of a lottery ticket, basically. Long shots that the kind of R&D stuff or skunk work kinds of stuff that usually is reserved for the most senior developers. I think you should give at least some of it, some of those problems, some of those ideas to the most junior developers with some senior supervision, but not in the terms of telling them what to do, but in the sense of a play center, stopping them from doing things that are going to cause harm. But then essentially letting those teams pretty much run themselves, give them a lot of responsibility, and see what they do with it. And also you've got to back that up with more learning and training and so on and so forth. But the real experience of software development is developing software, delivering working software. So give them a chance to do that on something that, okay, if it doesn't pay off, it doesn't pay off and it's no big deal, but it might pay off. And if it does pay off, it could be a really big deal. That long shot kind of stuff that's too risky to invest a lot of money in. You wouldn't go out and buy 1 million lottery tickets. Well, maybe you wouldn't, but it's worth buying a ticket. And that's kind of how I see this could work out, that you give these teams self-contained things to work on. Like, well, you've got 6 weeks or 12 weeks, work on this. And you give them a few, you let them take a few bets, basically, a few problems in the business or ideas for the business or the organization, if you're not a business, that you think could pay off big, but they're real long shots. And then give that to your most junior developers to have at it, basically, and give them much more responsibility in the understanding that if they fail, they fail. You haven't spent a lot of money. It hasn't taken a lot of time. And, if you don't play, you can't win, basically. And maybe that should be the first couple of years of their career. So they get a chance to talk directly to customers and maybe embarrass themselves a few times in that respect and learn their bedside manner. They get a chance to design and architect systems and, learn through iterations of that, how better to do it and how that process works. Get them not just writing, not just writing that part of code, but try getting them doing the whole thing together. So, front end, middle tier, back end, web services, whatever it is. Let them, let the kids be kids, basically, let children be children, and accept that they're going to make mistakes, they're going to break things, but create that soft play area for them so that it's not a big deal if they do. And accept that in the same way that for the last few years of my career, probably the most valuable thing I could do is teach. For the first few years of any developer's career, probably the most valuable thing they can do is learn. You see, those things dovetail very nicely there. So as I get into I'm hopefully not the latter stage of my career, but as I get older and now I'm in my 50s, I see developers in their 20s and think you should be spending most of your time learning, but that includes writing software. And I understand businesses balk at the idea of pretend stuff, because we did talk originally with some clients about a simulated project with a simulated client, basically, to give them that experience of working with a client, of designing and constructing software, a minimum viable product, of going through multiple iterations, multiple releases of working software, and so on and so forth. And that's something we do at Codemanship, and it is a very valuable experience, but there are a lot of businesses who are not willing to pay for their developers to spend a lot of time working on something pretend. So give them something real to work on. Give them something that may have value for your business, but it's a long shot. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Your business will carry on regardless. And your main IT projects or your main software products will continue unabated and untroubled, mostly by inexperienced developers. So what do you think? Comments in the comment section below. That's it for this video diary. I hope you're taking care. Until the next one, stay safe and play safe.